Welcome back to another episode of the Worst Hole Podcast, hosted by Chandler Danzler. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and watch on YouTube. Today we have owner of Chips Performance, former MILB player Alex Hale. We're pumped to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. All right. Before we start digging into high school, college, and Chips Performance and more, I'd like to ask this question here first. Who is Alex Hale? How would you introduce yourself?
Man, I'm just a baseball guy who's trying to figure things out like everybody else. Pretty good at the mental side of stuff and movement. And so that's kind of been my niche in the baseball world. And I
Mm-hmm.
started coaching 14 years ago with some little guys. Now those little guys are big guys. And turns out I didn't mess any of them up. So that was kind of a good key to might be onto the right track. And
Yeah.
so Um, man, I don't know. I'm just trying to teach guys from my mistakes. I think like a lot of coaches, and so trying to help guys save some time. I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. And so, but yeah, I mean, if I introduce myself like I'm Alex Hale and I like
Yeah.
baseball, so that'd be about it.
For sure. All right, let's kind of dig into about your high school. You were a 3-year varsity starter for Creighton Prep in Omaha, Nebraska. Started for 2 state titles. Can you talk a little about high school and some of your favorite things back in high school?
Um, my sophomore year, we were really really good. We were really competitive, so we were like preseason ninth in the country, and that was one of the most competitive groups I'd been around. It also
Mm-hmm.
taught me a lot about um, what like the chemistry on a team needs to be. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a bunch of guys who like each other. It doesn't need like guys on our team didn't hang out. They were all from like different groups, and but when they got together, it was I mean it didn't matter what we were doing. It was super competitive, and so I learned a
Yeah.
lot from that, and kind of take that into what we try to do here and with my teams. It's like embrace that competitive environment. Get guys close enough where they're not just always like super friendly, that they get kind of real.
Yeah.
And sometimes emotions come out and stuff, but that's part of the game. And so
For
just
sure.
taking that into what I do now has been really helpful. But high school's it's tough, man.
Yeah.
I get to see that every day with my guys, and it's there's nobody has it easy in high school. Everybody says high school is best time of your life. I don't I don't know about you, but I high school was a grind just like it is for everybody. So
For sure.
it
Yeah. You
was we
also.
had a good program too, so that was fun. Played under Coach Mooney, and um, he taught me a lot. And I had Coach Novacek. He pushed me a lot.
Mhm.
He taught me how to like hear what a coach was saying, not how he said it, and
Yeah.
so that was really helpful, especially when I got to college.
That's great. All right. You also told me you earned Gatorade Player of the Year for your state as a junior. Can you talk a little bit about that award and what that meant to you as a junior?
So I always talk to my guys about this. I won it as a junior, and I was so locked into like my process that year that it was kind of one of those things. Like I got it, I was like, "Oh, this is cool," and I kind of set it down and like went on to the next thing. It was I
Yeah.
didn't really understand it at the time, and then my senior year, I got really caught up in like the expectations and like to the point where I didn't know what I was even trying to do. And so we talk about
Mm-hmm.
that all the time with guys. It's like, what's your perfect day? And as a junior, my perfect day could be 0 for 2 with, 2 walks. And if I hit the ball hard a couple times, like I could look at that the same way I did if I hit a home run and 2 doubles or something. So it was like
Yeah.
getting guys' head around that. Because my senior year, I was just a mess for most of the season, just like trying to do so much, but not really knowing what the goal was. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a big part of what I try to instill in our guys is like having some perspective, because I didn't have anybody there to tell me why it was okay. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, I started struggling a little bit and I was like, this isn't okay. This isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'm like, but why? And so that was a big thing that I took going forward was understanding what I went through and how I got out of it and how I kind of righted the ship. And by the time I got to college, I didn't worry about my stats. I didn't worry about the game to game, and I just played free. And that was some of the most fun I ever had.
That's great. All right. If you could give any advice to any high school baseball player out there, what would you say to them?
Work harder than you think. That would be my best advice, because when you get into your process and you get into working on what day to day that you need to do and just focusing on like what's right in front of you, Everything gets a lot more simple. Find somebody you can trust to really talk to about like what's going on and what you're going through. Uh, Something I tell my guys all the time is like, you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders around, it's going to get pretty heavy. And so
For sure.
we're very attuned to our guys here. I'm always very attuned to my players and what's going on. So like they'll walk in and just kind of have that look, and I'm like, "What's up?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Nothing," you know. And I'm like, let's sit and talk. What's going on?"
Yeah.
Because sometimes they need somebody who's like not their parents to kind of vent and let know what's going on. Because no offense, but like your generation, like you guys are really good at like putting up this wall of like everything's fine, I'm good,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
um, and sometimes people don't see through that. And so I
Mhm.
think if you attune, you pay attention, it can really make a big difference with guys.
Definitely. All right. After high school, you were recruited and got a scholarship to University of Richmond Springs. Can you tell us a little bit about that recruiting process and the scholarship you got?
Yeah, so I played at the University of Richmond. We were the Spiders. They came to Nebraska for the Super Regional, and they had Tim
Hmm.
Stauffer and Vito Schiaravaldi, and Stauffer was like the third overall pick that year, and Schiaravaldi led the nation in home runs. And so it was like, who are these guys? And I knew I had a good plan looking back on it on my recruiting and what I wanted to do. I wanted to go somewhere warmer. I wanted to get away from home, and I wanted a chance at least to play right away. And
Hmm.
so that was what I was looking for in a school. And I was talking to a bunch of different schools, and we talk about the Omaha curse here because kids see the teams in Omaha every year, and it's like, well, I'm going to
Yeah.
go to this school or this school, and it's like, okay, but what about the other 290 schools out there that aren't going to be at the College World Series this year? What about those?
Yeah.
And recognizing there's a lot of opportunities. So when they started recruiting me, I was kind of like, who are these guys? What's going on? And I went out there for a visit, and on my visit, it was like a family, and that
Hmm.
was what I wanted. That was what I was looking for. I'd been to some bigger schools, and it was kind of like some guys didn't really like each other, some guys didn't really hang out, and this
Yeah.
was like when we went out for like Halloween, and I just remember them going to like guys' dorms and getting everybody, even the guys they
Hmm.
like didn't really like that much. They were like, no, but he's still coming. He's still our guy. Like,
Yeah.
bring him. And I just thought that was cool. So
That's great. All right. You started catcher as a true freshman and batted an average of 292, threw out 44% of runners, and also served as a relief pitcher with the ERA of 1.64. Can you talk about your freshman year and what you enjoyed the most in your freshman year?
so playing without expectations was like the most fun. I felt I knew I was a little overmatched at the plate uh,
Hmm.
right away, and so my defense was what was like keeping me in the lineup, and so I knew that was like my number one. So like each game, I wasn't like super worried about what happened at the plate. I mean, I was working on it and working on it, but I was like, this is I got to make sure I do a good job back there, back behind it. So um, and I was hitting my defense kept me in the lineup to the point of like 2/3 of the way through the year. I finally like looked at my stats, and I was hitting like 172, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have looked at those. Um,
Yeah.
and so I grabbed an older player on our team, and I remember like it was yesterday. I walk in the locker room, and his name was Ben Zeskind, and he'd gone to Florida and gotten hurt. And so when he came back, they were like, "Yeah, we don't need you." And so he
Hmm.
came to Richmond and hit like 400 for the next 3 years,
Jeez.
and just an awesome dude. But I come in the locker room, I'm like, "I need you to teach me how to hit," and he was like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And so we go up to the cage and just got back to being more athletic, trying to attack the ball and keeping it simple. So that turned everything around. So then I don't know, I kind of went on a tear at the end of the year to get
Hmm.
up to 292. And it wasn't like, I'll be the first to say, it wasn't like the hardest hit 292 in the world. But I had a couple bombs, a couple doubles, and I was like, I was figuring things out. And so
Hmm.
that's why I put so much emphasis for guys on being challenged in high school to try to like make that jump, that transition easier. Cause like
Yeah.
defensively, the hardest thing adjusting to the college game is catching like a really good slider, like that's breaking away from you,
Hmm.
and like sticking that pitch. But offensively, it's a whole different world. And so like you have to be ready for that speed. Otherwise, it can eat you up in the fall and eat you up. And we see so many breaking balls here because there's not a ton of velocity that like
Yeah.
I kind of started sitting more like breaking balls before I could start catching up to
Gotcha.
it a little bit easier.
Yeah. All right. What was the big difference between high school and college, kind of as far as competition and kind of the college life living on your own?
Well, that was why I wanted to go away, was because I knew I needed the comforts of home to be kind of far away. And so that was like a conscious decision. Like I knew it was gonna, it was gonna suck at first,
Hmm.
and it was hard. Like I cried the first night I was there. I was like, what am I doing? I'm like 1,300 miles
Yeah.
from home. Like I don't know anybody here, and like no one's coming to save me. And so it was challenging, but you also realize like how much you can handle. And that's why I tell all these high school guys, like especially the older juniors and seniors, it's like they get very caught up in like, well, I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to, and I'm like, well, when you get to school in the fall, you're going to basically be sore for a year.
Yeah.
And it's getting ready for that. So you can, I think you had EP.23 on, and he
Yeah.
talked about like trying to bridge the gap before you get there as close as you can, because like you'll never be
Yeah.
able to. And I followed him a lot on Twitter and stuff. I'm a big EP.23 fan, and
Hmm.
so, but he's absolutely right. Like bridging that gap before you get there to just make it as easy as possible, because it's not going to be easy. And so
Yeah.
getting close to that. I had a really good strength coach in high school who his name was Dan Barton, and I just got to him. I think I found him like my freshman sophomore year, and I was like freshman year I kind of went in there, but I was kind of scared of him. And then sophomore year I went in, and I was like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that was
Yeah.
like, we call that like other driver. So like I was just like, bro, you tell me what to do. I
No,
don't care
do
what
it.
it is, I'll do it. Get me ready for
Yeah.
college. And so, and
Hmm.
he did, and that was and then like that after that year, I like that junior year, I won Gatorade Player of the Year, and I realized how much all that benefited me. Just being consistent in the weight room, going when you don't feel like it, pushing yourself, learning how to eat, all those things. So that was a big part. I had really good people around me uh,
That's awesome.
growing up and stuff. So that was cool.
That's great. All right. After college, you were drafted by the Angels in 2007, then drafted and signed to the Boston Red Sox in 2008. Tell us what that meant to you and your family after being drafted, and kind of take us through that phone call, what that was like.
So going into my junior year, expectations were pretty high. And so it was like, I had an advisor. He was telling me, you're going to be like a third to sixth round pick. And I was like, at the time I was, a little cocky and arrogant. I was like, why well, second or first round pick? Like,
Hmm.
so, and then that year I let myself get overthrown. We had a bunch of pitchers go down, which is why I started pitching originally.
Hmm.
And then when more guys went down, I was like, well, I can throw Friday, I can throw Tuesday, I can throw Sunday. Like I was going like every fifth day, and I'd really just started pitching. And so that was really dumb looking back on it. Like I didn't have anybody in my corner going, yo, that's not your responsibility to make up for everything else.
Yeah.
And so then I started having arm injuries. So the first year it was getting drafted for the Angels was like, it was a letdown at first to like see myself fall in the draft. But then once I got the
Yeah.
call, I was excited. And I tried to get healthy the whole summer, not knowing I needed surgery. I had a
Hmm.
radial nerve problem. And then,
Jeez.
so I, all they wanted to see was me back at 100%. And it just wasn't, I thought it was going to like fix itself and whatever. And so went back home, waited, didn't sign, went back to school, found I needed surgery. And then it was like a 4 or 6 week recovery. So that was also frustrating. And so going
Hmm.
back through it, getting drafted by the Red Sox, I was like, okay, I got my opportunity. Let's make the most of it. And it kind of started acting up again during the season, but you're kind of starting to ignore it at that point. You're like, hey, this is in my
Yeah.
head, whatever. And after the Andrews did the second surgery, Dr. James Andrews, and he was like, "We're gonna try something," and I was like, "Dude, I'm so tired of dealing with this. Like, give it a shot."
Go for it. Yeah.
And so I got up to spring training, and I was throwing really well, and I was really excited about it. And then the lights went out, and all my feeling in my hand went away. So I lost all feeling in my hand, the back
Jeez.
of my arm, and so 5 days later, I went from like getting to throw in AAA spring camp, just like a little spot pitching
Hmm.
scrimmage thing, to 5 days later I was home. And so
Jeez.
that was like whoa. And it was because I tried to do too much as a junior and let myself get overthrown. And if I would have just been smart, I could have at least found out where I could have taken it. But I
Yeah,
don't regret anything. It was the
for
wildest
sure.
experience. You get to see guys who just can do things that are just so on another level, and just to be in the locker room with them and see the guys coming down for like rehab starts in the minor leagues and stuff and hear the stories. It's like it's it's a really special experience. Getting drafted was like, okay, like, you know, it was very validating.
Hmm.
But it was also like kind of wild to think of, like, I was just trying to, get a chance to play in college,
Yeah,
and to take it that far was really cool. I thought I did a lot with what I had. And so
that's great.
it was cool. But you see what's out there, man, and it's like it's so wild. Like I
Yeah,
was playing along like Justin Upton and Alex Gordon in high school, and seeing those guys and being like, man, like if they can do that, like what am I doing
yeah,
here? You know?
exactly. Yeah,
So it was cool
yeah,
though.
that's great. All right, you also held the position as an MLB scout associate. Tell us a little bit about that position, what the position entails.
You go to a lot of games. You go to a lot of games, and they kind of start you off with like, I went to the Nebraska's like red white scrimmage and Creighton's scrimmages, and filled out some reports, sent those in, and basically it was like a trial. They were like wanted to see if I knew what I was looking at, and they were like,
Hmm.
"Yep, this is what we had." And then so I started to go see other guys that kind of give me guys to go see, or I just go to games and you'd hear about players from different places, or you just go and see what you could find.
Yeah.
It's different here because there's not as many high school players drafted. It's not like Florida,
Hmm.
and so like a lot of times, even if you do find a guy who's really good, it's like, okay, we'll keep an eye on him and we'll come back. And so that was why I was kind of like, well, I don't know if this is gonna like really take me to the next step of like of scouting. But I
Yeah,
learned a lot, and I got to be around a lot of guys who'd seen a lot of baseball, and
that's great.
that was cool. Like you'd see
That
guys
helps.
call home runs and like just they did stuff. They'd just be sitting there, and I'm like, man, these
Hmm.
guys. I thought I'd seen a lot of baseball. They some of those guys who've been doing it for a long time had seen so much more, and so it gave me an
Hmm.
appreciation for that, and I still use a lot of that to this day. And going out and seeing guys now, I guess my expectations have changed when I go to watch games. It's like I'm not
Hmm.
like, okay, who's gonna who's the next guy. It's more like if somebody pops out, that nobody's already on.
Hmm.
Maybe
You
something
go for him.
happens, but yeah, you go for them and you fill out a report and send it in. But it's not as like intensive as I guess as it used to be. So
Hmm. All right, as an MLB scout associate, what were some of the main things you look for in a player?
um, how they move is a big one. How much effort goes into everything. Like you want a guy who plays with energy and plays with effort, but everything's not like super like full like max effort. Like if everything they do is
Hmm.
max effort and they're like close to where they need to be, it's kind of like a, well, you look at their body, you look at how physically mature they are, and say, okay, how much is this player going to grow? So that's
Yeah,
where projection comes into a lot. Projection's a much bigger part of the draft than like college recruiting. So for like college recruiting, like you want a guy who's going to be good now. And
yeah,
when you look around the state, even here, like we have guys going to a lot of Power Five schools and guys that are looking at the draft this year. And it's like there's still though guys that, well, I'd probably look at him more for the draft, but this guy's better. Like right now, if I have one game to win, I got one guy. Right, there's got this. I'd rather have this guy. So
hmm,
that's a little bit different. Um, but it's there's all kinds of things that go into it, and that's kind of what makes it fun. But when you're watching like the little things like who picks up the dugout, who hustles all the time, who if you can't handle a high school game without like losing your cool, you're not going to be able to handle pro ball. Because
for
pro ball,
sure.
you're on your own, you're playing every day. You got a little money in your pocket. Some of them
Yeah,
do. I mean, I was cashing
yeah,
my paychecks at the concession stands. So, but no, like it's just that like that ego. Like you want a guy who's really confident in what they're doing, and not, but not like a pain in the ass who's like too big for the team. Because at the end of the
yeah,
day, you're going to need your teammates. Even in pro ball, like your teammates are your guys. Like
for sure.
that's the unique thing about a locker room. It's like there's not the like live and die with each game. Like, oh, we lost or oh, we won. But there's the like you're kind of pulling for each other. And if somebody does well, you want them like get opportunities, and like you're playing your ass off to get your opportunities. So there's that element of trying like seeing if a guy's in high school again is losing his cool, and he's big league and mom after the game, and it's like, man, you call him like a high school big leaguer,
He's
like
not gonna
he
last.
ain't gonna
Yeah,
make it. And
yeah,
so you're not gonna waste time on that. The bad body language, the just too up and down, You want a guy who plays with energy, but not a guy who gets like super low.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something you got to learn how to handle is the failure. And
For sure.
if you don't look at it as failure, it makes it a lot easier, I think. Like, you're going to grow through the game. And if a guy makes good pitches on you, and you just tip your cap and try to get him next time, it's not a
Yep.
big woe is me, because guys who really are successful in high school at that like elite level, they swing and miss and they don't care, because
For sure.
they're trying to do damage. They're not trying to like put the ball in play. And I think that's a
Yeah.
big difference, where guys talk about like exit velocities and barreling up baseballs. It's There's more to it than that, to where like some of them, Gary Sheffield used to say, like, when they talked about Ichiro having 200 hits, he was like, well, some of us aren't trying to just put the ball in play. He's like, some of us are trying to
Mm-hmm.
hit it out of the yard. He goes, well,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to collect a bunch of hits. I'm trying to put the ball in the seats.
For
And
sure.
that always stuck with me, where like, figuring out what you can do by taking that risk, and you might swing through a ball and look like a fool, but you also might, lace it in the gap or hit it over the scoreboard.
Yeah.
As long as you're not swinging too big where you like really don't have a chance to hit the ball, which you see a ton of in high school. It's almost like a courtesy swing where like, bro, you weren't going to hit that anyway. Like you're so out of
Exactly.
control. Like you're just
Yeah.
hoping, and you're late. So like, if anything, you got to be able to hit a fastball. And I tell high school
Mm-hmm.
guys all the time, you can learn to just, if you can learn in high school to just not swing at a lot of breaking balls and be always ready for a fastball, you're going to have a relative amount of success, and it'll buy
For
you
sure.
time, so it'll
Definitely.
buy you time to learn
All
how to
right.
hit breaking balls, I guess.
Yep. For sure. All right. You're also in the owner of Chips Performance Training. Take us through how that started and kind of the whole process.
So the quick rundown of it was, um, we wanted a place that, we wanted when we were kids, and we always seen places talk about, customized training and all this stuff. And then when it never really, people didn't seem to follow through on it all the time. And I felt like if we got the right coaches together and planned it accordingly, it was still doable. And so we found the location. We got a great location, and that was kind of the beginning. We were like, all right, we got to go for this, man. And so
Mm-hmm.
we they had these beams originally in the building, and we got them to take those out before construction. And then we had the whole ceiling blacked out and the walls blacked out and everything, so you could see the ball better,
Nice.
because that was always something that drove us nuts. And
Yeah.
then we got delayed from, we were supposed to be open in March. We didn't get open until October. And so that gave us time to like really plan everything out. And so when guys come in, everything's completely customized to them, because it's really not that hard to identify weaknesses and things that they need to work on and build a plan for them. And then my
Mm-hmm.
assistant said, she's like the big sister. She makes sure all the guys know their schedule, know what they're doing each day. And that way it
It's
kind of
awesome.
breaks it up to when guys are coming in. So people don't have to like, you don't have to like book cages or anything like that. Like they're coming in waves to where we know what everybody's doing, and there's space
Mm-hmm.
available for them, and they can get their work in. And that way we can give them individual attention when they're here. And it's not, the transactional old school, like one-on-one lesson type thing. So it
Yeah.
kind of creates a family atmosphere. And when guys come in, we know their names, and they're able to get their work in, and build those relationships, so that when the season starts, we can be there for them. And after the games, they come in and work on things they need to, and get their lifts in and all that stuff. But it was the culmination of a lot of stuff, man. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of people, guiding us in the right direction, what to do, what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be able to do it without Ryan Ahart and Daryl Parks, and all of our guys here. So we got really good coaches, and
That's
it
great.
was just a perfect storm kind of thing.
That's awesome. All right. Tell us a bit about the memberships for Chips Training and the coaches you have working in the facility for you.
Oh yeah. So we have basically one membership that includes everything, rather than breaking up who can do what. We just said like it's like an all-inclusive resort. So you get a
Mm-hmm.
membership, you can do everything. So that includes your weight training, your testing, throwing program, pitching, hitting, infielding, catching. Includes your protein shakes. We have a glove mender here on site. We got
That's
video
great.
analysis. We got all that stuff comes together. So it's not, well, you can't do it, but you can. And we wanted it to be kind of equal opportunity for the guys who are here.
Mm-hmm.
For guys who are doing a lot of other stuff, other places, we have small groups. So if they just want to come and do infielding, they can do that too. We do infielding, catching. We do pitching. Some guys come in and do strength training only.
Awesome.
And so we we try to accommodate, the varying degrees of what everybody's doing. And also we understand that there's good coaches everywhere. And so like if you really have a good relationship with somebody down the street, well, you don't need to stop going to them. Like
For sure. Yeah.
it can all work together. And
Hmm.
that's a big part of our belief system, is that there's plenty of players, there's plenty of coaches, and it's not that hard to communicate a little bit so that it's not like a player doesn't feel pulled in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
So those are the offerings that we have. We really try to keep it simple. Otherwise it gets too confusing, and
Yeah.
you have all kinds of things to keep track of. So this way it's the players kind of are able to take care of the facility a little bit themselves, take some ownership. We always call it like respect the dojo. And so they
Hmm.
keep it picked up, they keep it clean. They take care of all of our stuff so that we don't have to replace stuff constantly. Stuff's not walking out the door. So we have that way we're able to use like really good baseballs. We have really good pitching balls. We can carry all like the weighted balls for hitting, and all the plyos and stuff. And that makes it a better environment for everybody. And so it's been really, really cool seeing how the players have responded to that. And it's been really fun.
For sure. That's great. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. You told me you're a big movement guy. What kind of movements and workouts should high schoolers or even college guys be doing during the season?
During the season, you got to keep an eye on, like, so your CNS is like your central nervous system. It's like, think of it like a meter, and when it goes down, it's not like an energy level, so to speak, of like, oh, I just need to eat something and I'll be better. It's like a longer term rejuvenation. So when you're lifting in season, I used to have to do the 3 sets of 10 and all that stuff, and I just get so worn out. And I'm like, and now I've learned from trial and error and working with guys, it's like shorter, fewer sets, fewer reps, 3 sets of 4, 3 sets of 3, get heavy, and then move on to the next thing. Like find a 2
Hmm.
or 3 rep, heavy set, and then go to the next thing, and just try to hit all your muscle groups in season, to keep yourself strong. I think when you make it into like an hour and a half lift, you're just wasting extra energy that ultimately you want to be good on the baseball field, but you want to keep your strength. So you're just trying to do
Hmm.
enough to like kind of activate those muscle groups, and help you with your recovery. Not so much like, and you'll build if you're as a growing player in high school, you're still growing and developing, and like you're not going to waste the lifts. So like get in there and like when you can, and get it in, but at the same time make sure you're still resting and recovering. I'll tell you right now, the best players that we have, they still lift after games. They still lift after practices. It's not like, oh, I have school lifts, so I'm not going to do anything. We don't try to like pound a bunch of stuff on top of each other, like combine it all. But we're like, hey, what do you feel like you need a little bit more of? And we just ask them and say like, how's your body feeling? That's why the attunement part is so big. Like if a guy comes in, he just looks like emotionally wiped out. We're like, hey, let's do a mobility day. Go hit. Don't worry about the
Yeah.
weight room today. And that's one
For
of the things
sure.
our flexibility is able to do in here is like, it's not like you come Tuesday and Thursday. It's like, well, if you can't make Thursday, just come Friday. Like it
Yeah.
makes it kind of player friendly, and our guys seem to like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. All right. What are some of your thoughts on the mental side of baseball? Let me pick your mind on that. Like, what's your thoughts on it?
I'll give you a tidbit. One, I have a 4-year-old, and so like when he starts playing baseball, I will not post his games or like his highlights, because as he gets older, kids are smart. And my background, I did baseball. I also did daycare. Kids are
Hmm.
way smarter than parents think, and
For sure.
they're not only going to notice when you post something about their game, they're going to notice when you don't post.
Yep.
And now you're like adding insult to injury. And I've seen more guys, teammates and stuff when I was growing up, like get burnt out from like their parents. And like kids don't get burnt out from video games because mom and dad aren't sitting over their shoulder critiquing it the whole time. Like they get burnt out
Exactly. Yep.
because they know that they missed a ball, they already feel crappy about it, and then they don't need somebody else beating them down over it. So I think letting kids fail within the game is a huge part of it, but also like learning how to handle those expectations just by learning what's a big deal. I mean, honestly, like I tell my guys in the summer and in the fall, like I'll tell you what's a big deal and what to worry about. And it kind of takes the pressure off of them, because sometimes they're like, when I first get new guys, they're always like looking at me down at third or looking at me in the dugout. And I'm like, what are you looking at me for? Like, you're doing fine. Like, you swung and missed. I don't care. It happens. Like, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, you don't have like something for me to do. And I'm like, no, try to hit it again. Like, I mean, that's why our guys have been successful, because we let them play, and we work on things in practice. We work on things, in between games. not gonna fix it mid at bat. Like, give what you
Yeah.
got, man. See what happens. And if you're not feeling good, get a pitch you think you can handle and swing hard and see what happens. But I think the mental side of it, one, the expectations from social media and what guys see out there gives them a warped view of like their progress and where they should be, because every player is different. And kids don't like to hear that, like, well, I want to be on this end, I want to be here. Yeah, I get that, but there's also freaks out there. And if you try to compare yourself to the freshman or junior, who's throwing 99, like, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to be disappointed because
Gonna mess you up.
yeah, it's going to mess you up. It's going to be like, and then you're going to start airing it out all the time. And then your arm's not going to recover. And then you're not going to throw harder. And then you're not going to take a break that you need to. And you're not going to listen to your body, and you're going to push it too hard. And what happens is guys will push it till it breaks, because subconsciously they get in this spiral of like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know how I can catch the guys when I feel like I'm doing what I can, but it's not happening fast enough. And they'll spiral themselves into injury. And then it's almost like a relief. And that's always really tragic to me. Like,
Yeah.
kids shouldn't be pushing themselves to that point where, the only out is getting yourself off the field, because it should be more fun than that. I think teaching kids
Yeah.
that the game is still fun, and that, I tell kids all the time, and parents are going to hate this, but I tell kids this all the time. I'm like, look, your parents love you and I care about you. But at the end of the day, we're just telling you what we think. And if you don't like it or you don't agree with it, let it, nod yes and let it go in one ear and out the other. If it's not helping you, just be very in control of what you let in. Because I tell them, like, your parents are as full of shit as anybody. Like, we're just trying to
Exactly.
help
Yeah.
because we care. And so, like, don't take it as like gospel that like this is what the only thing that matters. Like, your parents tell you not to do something because it's stupid. Like, yeah, don't do that. But if they're critiquing you because of the way the game went, especially if your parent doesn't really understand what's going on, which happens a lot, like in baseball,
Mm-hmm.
like, you get to hire you pass the level that your parent played at, and now they're like trying to tell you stuff, and you're like, okay, that's not really what happened, but all right, whatever. Just being
Yeah.
protective of what you let in. And so then if you like yourself and you're always talking positive of yourself, even if you're alone, you're in good company. So
For sure.
that's something we preach with our guys, is like positive self-talk. And like, if you can build yourself up to be, think of yourself as like the guy you want to be, you'll start to play more like him, and you'll start to do the
Mm-hmm.
little things subconsciously. You'll start to eat better. You'll start to get to sleep earlier. You'll take your studies more seriously. You'll start to view yourself as that guy. Because another thing we'll tell guys is, ask yourself, what is myself in 5 years going to tell me about right now? Is he going to tell me this is probably not that big of a deal? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So should I worry that much about it? No. How much energy do I deserve to expend on this? And I'll leave you with this. This is one of the big things I love telling guys. If you went to, let's say you stole something from a store and you got arrested and went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
When you got out of jail, would you still feel really, really bad about stealing the thing? Probably not, because you've already served your sentence, right?
Yeah.
So I tell guys all the time, how long are you going to keep yourself in a prison in your mind over something that happened in a game? And like, give it some perspective and be like, okay, how much did this impact my health, my family, the world? Like, not really much. So maybe I can let this go a little bit and not take it super seriously and just continually beat myself up over it when I don't really need to, and that doesn't serve me. So
For sure. All right, we're gonna go down to the last question here. We got a few minutes left. If you could give any advice to any young baseball player, what would you say to them?
play really, really good catch. Play really, really good catch, and the game will be more fun. And hit all the time. Hit every day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do those two things and then play a bunch of other sports to get yourself athletic, and then when you really find out what you're passionate about, focus on that. Don't let the pressures of your high school, that is not going to give two shits about you when you leave,
Mm-hmm.
dictate your enjoyment of high school. If you just want to play baseball, you just want to play football and baseball, or you want to play the oboe and play baseball, like, do whatever makes you happy. Because when guys get pressured into playing a bunch of sports and like physically exhausted themselves because they feel like they have to, they carry, again, they go back to, they carry a lot on their shoulders that they don't need to, and it gets really heavy after a while. So
Yeah.
watching players for years, the guys who finally make that jump and say, you know what, I'm not going to play this sport that I really, really don't like just because my high school tells me I need to, they're
Yeah,
always way happier and they always end up having a lot more success. And
for sure.
when guys are ready to like, parents need to realize when a kid comes to them and says, "Hey, I think I'm going to quit this sport," that kid's given that a lot of thought. And it is not like a, "Hey, I think I'm going to quit." It's like, no, the kid has been thinking about this because he knows your reaction, especially if it's negative. And like,
For sure.
he knows that going into it. So like, take that into account and be receptive to it and say, all right, like it took a lot for him to bring that to me because he knows how much I love, was it wrestling or basketball or football or soccer, whatever it is. He
Hmm.
knows how much I love that sport, but that's not his passion. So like, let him follow that, and he's going to take that further than you think. It Because at the end of the day, that's going to be his college experience, his friends for life. Like, I don't know about everybody. I only talk to a few guys from high school. So like,
Hmm.
but I talked to a lot of guys from college and a lot of guys from pro ball. And those were like the big people in my life that made a big difference. And so those are the people that I still stay connected to. Don't let high school be like this prison for you for 4 years. Because
Hmm.
it's at the end of the day, once they're done with you, especially like your high school coach and stuff, once they're done with you, most high school coaches don't really keep that relationship going forward. And
Yeah.
so as the guy who's had to pick up the pieces a lot of times for guys when they come back and they come back from fall and they're a mess and like they don't know what they're doing and they can't handle it. It's always really sad. Like when the high school coaches want to kind of like told them to go do that or told them to push to that school. It's like, you wish, and they're not all like that. And I'm not saying every travel ball coach is great or every performance coach is great, but you got to find out who you can trust and listen to those guys. And so we often have our players talk to other players and just say, "Hey, here's my 2 cents, but I don't do advice. I say I help
Hmm.
guys work through their decisions, and I say go talk to this guy though because he went through exactly what you did, and he might be able
Yeah,
to give you some perspective." So
for sure.
that's the long
All
answer to
right.
the short question.
Yeah, for sure. All right. All right. Thank you, Alex, for coming on the podcast, and good luck and congratulations on the chips training.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure.